like all good Novocastrians, I moved back to Newcastle 10 years ago. It's lovely to be here. I'm absolutely honoured to be here. Before I start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're meeting on today and pay my utmost respect to all elders, past, present and emerging. Now, if you recall, last year we get lots of bad news on the news. And last year, late last year, we all woke to hearing the news about the terrorist bombings in Paris. We didn't hear too much about the ones in Lebanon, unfortunately, but that same week there were horrific bombings and terrorism in Lebanon and Paris. And a few days after that occurred, I remember reading a blog that on Facebook, of course, where else do you find out things? And it was from a survivor from the theatre bombing, the theatre shootings. And she talked about her fear, trying to be quiet, not draw attention to herself while the gunmen searched for more victims. And she wondered, will this man kill me today? It was incredibly moving reading this. Now let's come back to Australia. Our population is around 24 million. Approximately 12 million are female. 1 in 3 women experience violence after the age of 15, some form of abuse. So that means at any time today, around 4 million women in this country could potentially be feeling what that young woman in Paris felt. Will this man kill me today? I'll let you sit with that. And it could be their partner or their ex-partner. I grew up in a home where my mother experienced this regularly, where I felt the same fear. My biological father, his weapon of choice was a gun and threatened to shoot her on numerous occasions. He played Russian roulette with her. He beat her to a pulp on many occasions. And back in the 60s, I know I look 42, but I'm actually nearly 56. But back in the 60s, there were women's refuges, and it was the woman's fault. She was asked what she did to deserve this, and why didn't she have his dinner on time. My stepfather's weapon of choice was sexual abuse behind closed doors, not with me fortunately, but with the other members of my family, and I've only just recently found this out. Sexual abuse and financial control. I saw the physical abuse, I witnessed it as a small child, and I felt the fear of the control. I vowed I'd never let a man hit me, and I didn't. No man ever hit me. The problem that I had was that abuse is in so many different ways, and so I believe that good people didn't hit you, bad people hit you. So instead, in a previous relationship when I was much younger, I lived with other forms of abuse, emotional abuse. But I didn't think it was abuse, I didn't acknowledge it was abuse until many years later, until I got to the other side, and even now I look back, and it was a very long time ago, but I suffered from PTSD for a very long time, because there were triggers. So the problem that we have with domestic violence is there's a lot of ignorance around it. It's been something that's been kept behind closed doors. There's a lot of people in this room that know me who have no idea of my story because I didn't talk about it. I was the founder of the Hastings Business Women's Network. I have been passionate about working with women. I've been involved with mentoring programs. I still mentor women now. In Newcastle, I was the president of the Hunter Business Women's Network because it needed a culture change. I've been passionate about women, but I've never been in a space where I could talk about it. Many years ago, Rob Oakeshott asked me if I would go on the board of the Women's Refuge, because our network always supported the refuge at Christmas time. And I said, no, it's too raw, can't go there. I'm now in a space where I'm talking. As Lynn said, I speak all over the country. I've worked in 88 towns and cities across Australia and in the US. It was only for 5 days, but it makes me sound cool. I'm an international speaker and trainer. But now I'm in a space, I'm married to an amazing man. I'm in a very loving, safe relationship. I have great family and friends, and I have a voice and I'm prepared to use it. So last year, 18 months ago, we started doing work in Lightning Ridge, Brewarrina, Walgett and Bourke with family and community services, and we work predominantly in the Aboriginal areas. And for the first time ever in my professional life, I actually spoke about some of the experiences I had while I was at work. And I did it around a table with an amazing group of Aboriginal women who were sharing their stories, and I felt in a safe place to share my story. That was the first step. There were a number of steps leading us to our project. That was the first step. The second, and we would drive away from there and hearing horrific things. I was blessed in my life in comparison to the stories I heard there. And we'd drive back to our comfortable home and our very lovely life in Newcastle. And I kept saying to Gary, I need to do something. I don't know what it is. And he'd just smile and go, it'll come to you. I know this look. It'll come to you. And then on the 25th of April last year, we were getting ready to go out to dinner. We called a cab because we planned to have a beverage or two. And while Gary was calling the cab, I was just flicking through Facebook. I'm not really an addict, but I was at the kitchen bench flicking through, and a friend had posted something. So I clicked on it and listened to it. And it was a 911 call. It was a 6-year-old girl ringing the police because of what Daddy was doing to Mummy. And I froze on the spot. It was a very powerful moment for me. I actually had a panic attack. It hit me. I froze because I remembered that fear as that 6-year-old girl. That was on a Saturday night. Gary said, the cab's here. I sat in the car, I shook, and I was a mess. Because it was this huge trigger for me. That was the Saturday night, the 25th. On the 27th of April, we were driving back out west again. We were working in Dubbo, and we stopped at Dunedoo for a loo stop. Pardon the pun, but you can stop at Dunedoo for a loo stop. And you can also get signal on your phone. I've got signal on my phone. And there's some people in this room who may know Kim Brown from Port Macquarie. She's an old friend of mine, known her for many years. And she sent me a message. I hadn't been in touch with her for ages, and she sent me a message, and she knew that I was starting to put things on Facebook about domestic violence. And she said, I talked to an old customer of ours from the pub. He told us about his niece, who is 14 years old. She's petitioning the government to change the curriculum to include healthy relationships in schools. She's 14 years old. And she believes if she had known that what she lived with in her house wasn't normal, she might have been able to save her mother's life, who committed suicide as a result of domestic violence. And Kim put at the bottom of the message, I don't know why I had to tell you this. I got off the phone to him and said, I thought I have to tell Kelly. And in that moment, all I heard in my head was 100 stories. I just knew what I had to do. And then my darling husband, we talked about it non-stop. I was processing and then it just flowed. And I talked about what I wanted it to be. I wanted to have a beautiful book that would be in doctors' surgeries and waiting rooms, that would have beautiful photographs, lovely inspirational quotes, but 100 stories from women who have escaped and survived domestic violence. We wanted them to tell us what happened in their life, how they got into that situation, and usually these men are incredibly charming. But more importantly, how did they get out, and how can they help other women by telling their story? And Gary said, how are you going to keep them safe? And I said, oh, I'll give them all different names. And he said, why don't you give them all the same name, like Alice or something? And all I could think of was the Daggy song, sorry if you liked it, Living Next Door to Alice. Because so many of us are living next door to Alice, and we either don't know, or we do know and we don't know what to do about it. So that's where 100 Alice Stories was born, on the road from Dunedoo to Dubbo. Since then, we have created a website. We've been in the paper a number of times. I was here speaking at HBWN about it. Every time we speak about it, we get more interest. We have 39 stories so far. We have a website. We're starting by putting the stories onto a website. I figured that I would probably never know if we made a difference to someone's life. My goal was for someone to read it and go, maybe I can go too. We want to also put in information in there about where you can go for help, who you can access. So this is my goal and plan for this book. Gary and I are funding it on our own. We're not looking for money. We're looking for people to spread the word so women can read the stories on the website or submit their stories. I know how hard it is to tell your own story. My story's in there. Two of my mother's stories are in there. So each person gets called Alice, they get given a number, and I was speaking at a Reclaim the Night event late last year in Lake Macquarie, and this woman came up to me afterwards and she said, "I'm Alice number so-and-so, and I'm proud to be an Alice." The women are writing to me saying that it's cathartic to tell their story. My own mother, who's 81 shortly, said she felt she could close a chapter on 50 years of her life, pain in her life, once she finished, wrote the story, did the full stop and finished it. It was that was done for her. And now she's the greatest advocate in Gympie. If you stand still long enough next to my mother, she'll tell you about that, the Alice Project. But as I said, I didn't think we'd ever know if we would make a difference and encourage someone to leave. But in the last few months, I've heard of two women, one in Queensland, a young pregnant woman, who walked into a real estate agent inquiring about how do you rent a flat or an apartment. And she happened to walk into where my niece works as a property manager. She had a black eye, pregnant, bruising, and she said, "I don't know how to do it and I've never done it before, but I've got some money saved up and I want to know what to do and can you show me something?" And my niece, who had also experienced DV, sat her down and made her a cup of tea and put her in front of the website, and she said, "Here's the website, you have a bit of a look, you don't have to look at it now," because she was still not sure whether she was going to leave or not. And she said, "I'm going to save this place, here's some places that you can look at, see what you like, and this one's in your budget, and here's how I'll help you with the paperwork. So have a bit of a think about it and have a look at this other website, 100 Alice Stories." She came in and signed up the next day. So when I found that out, I was a mess, as you can imagine, so excited. And then we have a lawyer in Newcastle who has who does our legal work for the Alice Project pro bono. She has our link to our website on the front page of her website, and she wrote to me the other day and said she got an inquiry from a young woman who wanted to know how to escape, wanted help to leave with her two children, leave her abusive marriage. So that's two women. I was disheartened because we haven't got to our 100 yet and I'm not a patient person. But my sister pointed out we have 39 women who have been able to aid their own healing. 39 women who've told their story, and we get hundreds of hits to our website each week. So we're spreading the news quietly and calmly, and this is teaching me patience. So I will tell you a little bit more when we get to the panel about what we can do, how everyone in this room can make a difference by doing some very simple things. We want to remove the ignorance. There's four purposes, key purposes for this project. One, as I said, to encourage women to make the move. Two, to provide healing for those who have been on a journey. Three is to change the conversation around domestic violence and remove the stupid question, why doesn't she just leave? It's often said very well-meaning, but there are a million reasons why she can't leave, why it's the most dangerous time for a woman, but more importantly, why are we asking that question? Why aren't we saying, why is he doing it and what is society doing to change things? They're the questions we should be asking. The other thing is, I want these women to be seen as courageous heroes. When Mick Fanning had the shark going for him and he was saved by the other surfer, that was all over the news, and they were courageous and they were heroes, and yes, they were. Fantastic. But there's women that face much greater fear every day of their lives. And they protect their children and they survive and they get out. They're the real heroes, in my opinion. So I'll let you have your breakfast and I look forward to talking to you a bit more.